Hello, and welcome to Skincare Confidential, the podcast supporting the Science of Skincare Summit, an annual meeting occurring in Austin, Texas. It is my pleasure. This is Dr. Ted Lane, by the way. I am the co-host and the host for today, the co-host of the podcast, along with Dr. Patty Ferris. It is my great pleasure to announce my guest, Mr. Eric Ducournau. Mr. Eric is the CEO of Global Pierre Fabre. Pierre Fabre, of course, is one of the top three skincare companies?
Top two in the field of dermo-cosmetics. Hello, Ted.
Hello. Okay, the top two in the field of dermo-cosmetics in the world. And we are both here in France. I'm here on behalf of Pierre Fabre, learning much more about the brand, and had this opportunity to sit down for a few minutes with Eric. And so we wanted to make sure we took advantage of this time and our proximity. So Eric, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Oh, great. So let's just start with you and your history and your journey. I know you started with Pierre Fabre, the company, many years ago. Can you just take us through what your path to becoming the CEO?
Yeah, thank you. So it was 24 years ago, and I began as a chief of staff of Mr Fabre. So I was coming from a communication and a public affairs company in France. And I didn't know anything about pharmacy and dermo-cosmetics. I was a lawyer by education, by training, and I made what we call political sciences in France, which is a school about what is named, so political sciences. And so I learned a lot from Mr Fabre, and I had this position of chief of staff during 5 years. And after I moved to other positions, the legal counsel of the company, general secretary for the board of directors. And after I was in charge of what we call market access. So for the drug, especially, regulatory and vigilance for the group. And after I moved in 2013 to the position of CEO of dermo-cosmetics, which is our division in charge of some brands that you may know in the US. So I'm talking about Aven, I'm talking about Chloran, I'm talking about René and other ones. And after I've been appointed as CEO of the group in 2018, so 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Pierre Fabre was such an interesting man. I'm a trained pharmacist, also a botanist, and of course an entrepreneur. He started his company in the 1960s, right, Eric?
You're right. 1962 to be precise.
1962. And he's grown this company. He grew this company incredibly well. We were talking earlier that he at some points was CEO and president of the company. At other points he had a separate CEO come in, but his work ethic was such and his demands were such that it was difficult for someone else to run his company while he was still alive, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that's the case, when you have the chance to have inside the company the founder of the company. So that's very linked, I could say, to the personality. And so he had a strong personality. He was very involved in his job. And really, he has decided to create perhaps two concepts which were original at this time. So the first is the concept of dermo-cosmetics. Because as pharmacist, as you said, he had a sort of, I could say, nightmare in his pharmacies. He was seeing some patients that had ended their prescription of drugs for dermo concern, and that nothing to find in the pharmacy at this time in the 60s, which were helping them, I could say, to treat themselves after the drug treatment. And the only perks that were existing at this time were luxury perks, so coming from Dior, other brands like this. So he has decided to create the concept of dermo-cosmetics. So that's really cosmetics by regulation, but presented, provided, and endorsed by dermatologists. So that's the first originality. And the second one is to have a company where you have in the same company a drug company and a dermo-cosmetic one. And this is unique in the world. So that's the reason why I said that with these originalities, of course, he was very involved in the runaway of the company. And in this way, of course, he was very present, and it was quite difficult during his presence to be replaced or to be, I could say, to be working, to see him working with another guy, so a CEO, for example. So
Yeah.
because it was so personal, this sort of concern, attitude, etc.
So I didn't realize that he actually is the one that developed the idea and the concept of dermo-cosmetics. And of course, as dermatologists now, as especially in the United States, we often have to turn to dermo-cosmetics or just what we call OTC
Yeah.
skincare, both in terms of making the prescription drugs that we give our patients more tolerable, but also because sometimes we have prescriptions that just are not covered by insurance companies.
Yeah.
And so we have to turn to OTCs to help treat the condition. But all of that started with Pierre Fabre.
Yes, yes, and really, it's a concept that you mentioned. So that's not drugs, but that's developed with some clinical endorsement, I could say. So
Yeah.
because of course, if you want to visit dermatologists, so
Mm.
through the way of dispensing, for example, in the US, but perhaps you know that in Europe we are visiting all the European dermatologists, and we are really the only company to visit all the European dermatologists. Of course, if we want to have a conversation with the dermatologist, we have to provide to you some really scientific studies, scientific robustness about the products we have developed. And we have to give you the proof, the scientific proof, of course, of the efficacy of these products, because
Yeah.
you are in charge of the relation of patients and you want to treat your patients. So
Well,
it was really the originality.
and I learned recently that the same development process that is used on the pharmacologic side of the company is being applied to the dermocosmetic side as well.
Yes, it is. So, and you've seen, because I know you have visited it, so you've seen where we are doing our clinical trials, where we
Hmm.
receive each day 100 people treated for acne, eczema, psoriasis, etc., with our creams and
Hmm.
products.
We'll talk mainly during this episode about the dermocosmetics, obviously, but let's touch on the pharmacologic side of Pierre Fabre, which, to my understanding, is really focused on oncology, correct?
Yes, so mostly in oncology. So oncology, we are investing roughly 200 million euro per year in research
Wow.
in our drug field, I could say, and 70% are for oncology. The rest
Hmm.
is for dermatology and for rare disease. But
Okay.
you're right, oncology is our major focus.
Yeah. And hemangiol, in terms of in dermatology, what we may recognize, hemangiol is produced by Pierre Fabre, correct?
Yes, it is. So,
Okay.
and that's a wonderful history because at the origin of hemangiol, perhaps you know that there is some physicians in Bordeaux, so in an hospital, that have realized that treating a young boy for a heart disease with propranolol, they have realized that he had an hemangioma at this time, and the drug has resolved his hemangioma. So they have decided to propose to Pierre Fabre to develop the drugs in the field of dermatology regarding hemangioma. And it was we did with them, and we launched the products in the US in 2014.
Yeah. Amazing how that has changed the way hemangiomas are treated completely. It's made it so much easier.
And really that's one of our agility, I could say. It's a way to reformulate some drugs to make them able to be used for treating, for example, babies, which is the case
Yeah.
in hemangioma, because the
Right,
oral
right.
form has changed, of course, the use of the drug.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, another very unique aspect to this company is what happened in 2013, right? When Pierre Fabre bequeathed the company to a foundation. So essentially, the majority of the shares of this company, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but the majority of the shares of the company are owned by a foundation, and much of the profit of the company is transferred to the foundation with a strategic mission. Can you tell us what that mission is of the
Yes.
foundation?
So you're right. Since 2013, so the non-profit organization called the Fondation Pierre Fabre, so Pierre Fabre Foundation,
Hmm.
detains 86% of the shares of the company. So every time we give to the shareholders $100, we are giving to the foundation 86 dollars. So that's their part, I could say. And they use it so to help people to be better treated in Africa and Eastern Asia. So why these countries? It's of course because there is a place in the world where you have the most of undeveloped countries.
Mm-hmm.
And Pierre Fabre, who was traveling a lot, we talked about previously, so was traveling a lot, has realized that in this country, it was very difficult to have access to good medicines. So I could say to help these countries to have better access to good medicine, the first idea was to fight with fake medicines, because fake medicines I took by a lot of bad organization, I could say, and sold to people in these poor countries. So it was to help the countries to make a mechanism to control the access of drugs in the country. So what is the mechanism is a quality office, if you want, at the place of the Minister of Health. But what is done by the foundation is to pay for the training of the pharmacists that will be involved in this field. So it was the first idea, I could say, of the foundation. And after, it has developed other topics, like, for example, to help albinists in Africa, because albinism, as you know, is mostly present in Africa. And these people are rejected from their communities or families. So the foundation is providing to them a job and helping them to have a better life, of course. The foundation is in charge to help especially young people that have good ideas in the way of developing e-health. And e-health is very important when you see Africa, for example, where in some countries you have not a lot of specialists in medicines for all, of course, the field of medicines. And you can be helped, of course, if you have better access with e-health to a doctor to have a first treatment or a first advice regarding your disease. So that's mostly what is done by the foundation.
Wow. So then not only are they ensuring that the correct pharmaceutical products are introduced into the company and not fake ones, which is, I can imagine how that increased the overall health of the population dramatically just with that. They're also targeting special populations such as those patients with albinism, and then providing telehealth or e-health so that they're providing greater access to healthcare for those two areas of the world, which are incredible missions of that foundation. And so every time that we purchase a product from an event product, then part of those profits are going to help people in East Asia and Africa. There's a direct link.
Yes, you're right. So 86% of the profit are going to the foundation. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
By law. Yeah.
Yeah. In addition, because there's so many great things from this company, in addition, there's the sustainability aspect and the environmental impact that Mr. Fabre actually took very much into account as a botanist, as he's developed his products. Just, you could see through the packaging, through how the resources that are used. This US CEO Lisa was telling me that I believe it's in the conservatory where all the plant products are, that 30% of the energy used is because of a closed system, right? Where it's from the waste of the plants that's used to help produce the energy. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. You're right. So, at the origin, Pierre Fabre, as a pharmacist and the botanist too, considered that you can treat a lot of disease with ingredients coming from plants and globally the nature. So today, when you see all the portfolio of Pierre Fabre, 60% of our products are using natural ingredient, whatever it is, water, for example, for Raven, or it is a plant, for example, for navelbine, which is an anti-cancer drug. And what he has done, he has built the most important European library regarding plants, which is present in our facility for R&D in Toulouse, so in the south of France. And it has been recognized by the European Commission as officially the most important library of plants in Europe. Wow. From this, you can source a lot of active ingredients and a lot of innovation. So I mention this because at the origin, when you want, of course, to go back to this history of medicine and pharmacy and to use natural active ingredients, of course, you have to take care about nature. because nature, sorry, is really where you will source your innovation. And it was the origin of the history. And today, what we try is to be very involved in the saving water, of course, reducing our CO2 emission, etc. A lot of these topics, and all of our plants and facilities are involved. Like, for example, in all of our buildings, to move to sun care energy, or to really save what we can save. And we have huge, I could say, objectives, targets each year, which are controlled by our accountants. So, for example, to reduce our energy consumption by 20% each year, for example, during 2 years. And that's really what we are trying to do. So we are very, very involved, and we call this the green mission of the company.
Yeah, I mean, Pierre Fabre was well ahead of his time in terms of how he thought, obviously developing dermo-cosmetics, but also the sustainability aspect of his company was well ahead of his time. I mean, it's only in the last 5 to 7 years, I think, in skincare that we really focused on sustainability. He's been thinking about it since the beginning.
Yes, because I think that he was very, very, he had a conviction, is that when you are, and I will give you another example, when you are using something, or when you are inheriting from something, or when you have to give back more than you received, I could say. So, of course, if you put yourself in this position, so I receive something and I will have to go go back to give back, more than I received. Of course, when you see the use of natural active ingredients, you have to do more. And more was not only, for example, to have grounds to make the plants growing. So, for example, in the area of France where we are based, we have 400 hectares of ground where we are growing our pepper plants for our use. So in Chlorane products, for example, or René products. But that's not only to do this. That's to help, for example, all the countrymen to be involved in a better way to make the growth of the plant, not using, for example, chemical ingredients. Right. And when you go back to creams or products that are used by dermatologists, if you are sure, for example, that it is really preservative safe or without any chemical ingredients, when you are using Aven products or the ones, that's very important for very sensitive skin or scalp that you are seeing every day as dermatologists.
Sure. Well, okay. So this is a great opportunity for us to talk about Aven, the brand, which is what we really know in the United States in terms of the primary Pierre Fabre dermo-cosmetic brand is Aven in the States. And so you talk about the lack of preservatives. That comes from very innovative packaging that, for example, in the Xeracalm and the Tolerance line, which is, it doesn't allow any air into the products and any water to get into the products. And without air and water, you don't really need preservatives. And so that is unique, correct? That we have a topical, a cream, that moisturizing, lipid repairing, barrier repairing cream such as Xeracalm AD that has a postbiotic ingredient as well, but has absolutely no preservatives, which may irritate the skin of a flaring patient with atopic dermatitis. It's incredible.
So it's not the end, I could say, of the journey, but really, of course, I talked a lot about ingredients. I forgot to talk about packagings, but packagings are important. So, of course, to reduce the consumption of carton, etc., for example, for the packaging itself, but to move the plastics that we are using for packagings. And what we consider today, and that's what you are talking about, that's what we call the sterile cosmetics concept, is that if you preserve really the cream of any contact with hair, water, etc., of course you will preserve the originality, I could say, of the cream, the safety of the cream. And doing this, you will be better, I could say, in terms of function regarding the very, very sensitive skins. And this is really dedicated to sensitive skin. So this is a concept invented by Pierre Fabre. So that's patented concept. We only authorize another company to launch products for eye disease with this concept of packaging, and it will be launched in the US in a few weeks. Honestly, that's coming from another French company. But this concept is very original, and I said that's a part of the end of the journey, because of course to put out any preservative for a cream or an emollient, etc., is very important, because of course for very sensitive skin, sometimes you are facing some patients where you can't apply any cream because everything is irritating them. So I think that the test you can do with them is to test this sort of creams, because there is no risk of other, I could say, ingredients inside the cream except the active ones regarding the disease, the skin concern of the patient.
Taking the idea of sustainable packaging even further, my understanding is a Hyaluron B3 will be coming out with a cream that will have a replaceable pod. So you'll purchase the pod and the jar, and then as a refill, quote unquote refill, you'd buy a pod with just the cream. So it really reduces the packaging of moving forward of the second, third, etc. purchase of that cream.
Yeah, I think that's the modern way we have to sell our products today. And so perhaps you are familiar to this. For my personal perfume, for example, which is not a Pierre Fabre, the company which is providing it is doing this for many years. So that's the reason why we decided to move to this way. And as you said, and so you buy first the jar, and after you buy only the cream, and that's a way to save, of course, consumption. We know that, for example, to not reuse a jar is a nightmare, because today we have not to every time replace all part of the perks when we are buying a new cream, a new ingredient. So yes, it's what we will try to do for all our products.
Yeah. So, switching gears now just to talk about Aven. I noticed recently that Aven is launched in, I think it's CVS. You can now purchase Aven products in CVS. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a new channel of distribution for the brand, right? There's a new new strategy. Will you walk us through that?
I think that if we talk about business model, or if we talk about what we call in Europe, like in the US, omnichannel strategy.
Omnichannel strategy.
I think that the only country where today it exists, that's the US.
Okay.
because of different topics. The first is the development of e-commerce, because of course, because of your very strong companies involved in this business in the US. I can mention the name, but everyone can see what I mean. Of course, because of the involvement of these companies, you have the country where the e-commerce is the most present for all the furniture, all of goods. Yeah. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that because you have very well organized distribution, and that today all your customers want to find everywhere they are going all the products. So they don't want to think about the fact that one brand is, for example, distributed in one chain of pharmacy and the other brand is distributed in another one. So this sort of exclusivity is quite finished, I could say, except for luxury goods, but we are not talking about luxury goods. So that's the reason why we have decided to apply this omnichannel strategy, very frankly, directly, I could say, to the US, because that's the only country where it is relevant. Okay. So, but what we maintain is that we have a differentiation regarding that some products that are really specified to dermatologists, and the other ones that you can find in the channel of distribution. And I want to mention it because I think that's very important to value correctly the prescription of dermatologists, to consider that when they are facing a patient, that's very important to understand that some products, because they are more technical, are reserved to them, and the patient can have access to them only dispensing in their proper office. And the other ones, more common, or for more common disease, I could say, are affordable in all the channel of distribution. But I think that we are the only company to maintain this distance,
Yeah.
and
So there's a
that,
direct dispense model. In other words, the direct dispense from the
yeah,
dermatology office, and then there's
yeah,
the mastige as well,
yes,
from that we find at the CVS, for example.
yes.
We only have a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the event strategy as well, because now what we have is, a real focus on cellular senescence in the event brand. And I know the hyaluron B3 with the 6% niacinamide and the short and long chain hyaluronic acid has been shown to decrease the number of senescent cells in the epidermis. And so there's a real push towards that. But in addition to your beautiful retinol products that you have in terms of anti-aging, do you see that cellular senescence um, strategy creeping into more products that you're developing, or will you move in a different strategy?
No, I think that what you said and the way you presented the products is very interesting because you mentioned the ingredients,
Mm.
and that's a different way to talk about the product in the US and in Europe. In the US, you are directly going to the ingredient
Mm-hmm.
because your very educated patients and consumers are knowing about the efficacy of ingredients and really focusing on ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference with Europe. We are more, I could say, going in poetry or talking about the products. That's very different, and more literature, if you want,
Mm.
than in the US, where it is more straight to the point.
Mm.
And really, what we want to do this is develop in this way because it's most efficient. And of course, the ingredients we are using are very well known by the dermatologists and sometimes by the patients or by the consumers too. And that's very important, to be more strict, more direct, I could say,
Mm-hmm.
putting in advance these ingredients. So that's really the way we want to develop Aven now, saying that, of course, Aven will be very close to its traditional functions, I could say, taking care about eczema, psoriasis, dryness of the skin, anti-aging, as you said. So, but really the aim of the brand is really dermatology and products that could be provided, endorsed, presented, proposed by dermatologists to their patients.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's the anti-aging line, right, where the price points are in the $40 to $50 range. Certainly, very accessible for those price points, for especially the very beautiful formulations and the ingredients that are offered in them. But then you've also got something where almost all of our patients can use, especially in the dermatology office, which is a Cyclophate Plus,
Yeah.
which I recommend daily to multiple patients, which is in the $20 range. It's really much more accessible. So you've got this differentiation, which speaks to Pierre Fabre's original mission in developing the dermo-cosmetic line to align the products with the needs of the dermatology patient.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
yeah,
And thank you to underline these accessible prices
yeah.
because I think that's a key point. And dermo-cosmetic, as I said, has been invented really, I could say, to be a follow-up of the prescription of the dermatologist
Mm.
or to help the dermatologist to have the good cream, I could say, regarding the skin condition of their patients.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when you are providing drugs, I could say, in this same field, sometimes it's not affordable for the patients, not in terms of price, but really because they don't like the cream, the galenic of the product,
Yeah.
etc. So we work a lot, and we know that the galenic is very important if we want the patients taking their treatment along all the prescription. So that's the reason why we are working on this topic, but we are estimating today, as it was at the origin, that really we have to provide products that could be endorsed by dermatologists, so that could be affordable for all of their patients, and not
Mm-hmm.
only for people who has the better, I could say, revenues. So that's the reason why we maintain this sort of prices, because we are not in luxury, but really in this middle between drugs and cosmetics, which is dermo-cosmetics.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric, thank you so much. Listen, we're out of time, and I know you have to run off to about 10 different meetings this afternoon. Really appreciate your time today. I enjoyed learning about this brand and this company so much since I've been here. It really is innovative and unique from what I've seen. So thank you for what you're doing for the dermatology patient. Thank you for, the charitable mission of the foundation as well. And I really think it resonates with both dermatologists and our patients that working with this company is something that is helping the world as well as helping nature. And it's allowing your company to also innovate and produce products based on the botanical ingredients to really move skincare forward in a very natural way. So,
thank you for your interest.
Absolutely. So thank you, everybody. This is Dr. Ted Lane. I'm here with the CEO of Pierre Fabre, Eric Ducournau. And this has been the latest episode of Skincare Confidential. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and give us a 5-star rating if you have a second. Thank you.